Everybody, welcome to the call. I really appreciate everybody who jumped on, and I really appreciate Lisa for jumping on as well. She's a wealth of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of different roles she's played, a lot of different things she's built. She's done subdivisions, tiny homes, new construction, started rehabbing. I think she's still rehabbing a little bit.
A little bit.
Until you're done with this last one. And then
done.
Yep, I'm the same way. And that's a lot of what we're going to talk about today. The differences between the two and why every new construction builder I know never wants to touch rehabs again. So I know this is called the Rehabbers Playbook, but we also talk a lot about new construction. And me personally, I build 90% of my projects are new construction. A little bit about me for people who don't know. My name's Brandon Lindsay. I'm a rehabber, flipper, real estate investor, builder here in Richmond, Virginia. I also run the Rehabbers Playbook, which is hosting this call today. And that's about it for me. The Playbook has been a great passion project of mine, and it's been a lot of fun. And we have a great group here. A lot of people on the call today are going to be from the group, but we also have a lot of people from outside the group who are going to be jumping on as well. So Lisa, why don't you give us a little rundown of yourself, a little bit about what you do, where you started, and how you got to where you are today?
I started about 22 years ago now. I am a real estate broker. I started out selling new construction, putting land deals together, taking them to developers, going through the whole rezoning process. I wanted to learn it. So a lot of my time in the beginning was free because I wanted to learn everything I could and soak it all up. So my second real estate deal, my first one was like a $30,000 deal. My second one, I put together 2 farms. It took me 6 months to do it. I had no idea what I was doing. I put together 2 farms and it created 165 lot subdivision for 55 and over community. So it was a great project. It's actually still going on today. Part of it went under during some of the tough times, and somebody else bought it, so they're continuing it. But the project did teach me a lot. When the market turned, new construction, I was building, my husband's a builder, has been for over 30 years. So I was helping him. I did a lot of the selections. I would sell the home when he built it, but I never really started getting involved into the construction part of it until about a year into my real estate license. And so I started wanting to really, in fact, I really wish I had done more before then with new construction, because I really have a lot of passion for it. So when the market started turning, we were in the middle of building spec homes, and we had $500,000 credit lines with 2 different banks. It was just so easy to get money back then for new construction. And all of a sudden, everything got pulled. They cut us off, wouldn't let us build anymore. We had 2 houses going, which they were around 1,400 square feet. We ended up renting them, which hurt because, we didn't get any profit out of that. So I knew then that I had to do something to eat. I was always going to stay, always try to stay ahead of everything. So a friend of mine out of the blue called me and said, "Hey, do you want to list our foreclosures?" She was an executive at SunTrust. She said, "Do you want to list our foreclosures?" And I'm like, she said REO properties. I didn't even know what REO was. I said, yes, when she said list. So it kind of took off from there. And I got into REO and started listing them very heavily in the Richmond area. And at the same time, things were rebounding with new construction. So I'm trying to do rehabs on the side, but I couldn't buy any of my own foreclosures. So that was kind of tough. And I was working 7 days a week. So back in 2016, I just said, I'm done. I'm burnt out with this. I want to exit out. I attended one of Jim Ingersoll's events, and that kind of did it for me. So I started getting in full time into flipping and more new construction. So and now I've exited my brokerage altogether. I'm still licensed as an associate broker with EXP, but I only buy if I buy something from the MLS, I use that, and if I sell one of my flips or new construction, I use my license for that. That's about it.
Awesome. So 2016 is when you kind of stepped out on your own, and then ever since then you've been building for yourself.
I gave all of my agents a deadline. I think it was like March, and I gave them until November. and I gave back over 20 REO properties. I kept the HUD account for a while because it was really easy to manage. And then I ended up giving that up as well. I just didn't want anything to do with it anymore.
I love it. So yeah, talk because this is something that I barely even recognized until we started talking about getting on this call. Was I forget that you were an agent and you did have and you still have the license. What was that experience like being an agent, real estate agent, compared to your life and your profession as now a developer?
I just felt like I had more control because,
Yeah.
I was dependent on other people for the listings and
Hmm.
banks and government agencies for the listings. And I did really well with it, but I didn't have to depend on that. I could just depend on myself. And really, honestly, you can really only depend on yourself, right? So
Yeah.
you have to go out there and make things happen. And that's what I did.
I love it. Yeah, because when people get into entrepreneurship, they think, oh, now I don't have a boss. But if you're client focused, your client's your boss, at the end of the day. So I don't, what always turned me off from being an agent, and to everybody who does it, it's an incredibly important job. I'm not one of those rehabbers or investors who are like agents, they just cause problems or all that stuff. Incredibly important. They're the reason we get top dollar. It wouldn't be me. I would never be able to do that. But I also would never be able to get phone calls on weekends, or would never be okay getting the phone call on the weekend that's like, hey, we just found 3 houses that we like. Can we go tour them? That sounds very difficult. And it sounds like you can't control your schedule, So that always made it hard for me to go in that direction. I went in the construction direction and developing and flipping and all that stuff.
And I can't tell you how many times on Friday I got down to the river, and I had an office set up down here too.
Oh,
But
no.
I would get down to the river on Friday, and I swear all the asset managers would release their properties just to get them out of their queue on Fridays, and then I'd have to turn around and go back.
Yep.
And especially if I didn't have any help for that weekend. But yeah,
And
I
what's
do like it.
interesting, yeah, and construction, it can be perceived that you have to be on the job more, right? But if you have good systems and good people, you could be at the lake, and if they're like, hey, I need another box of tile, ask me how I came up with that idea. I need another box of tile. Can you, bring that over? If I can call somebody, if I have a project manager or a good team, they can take care of that for me. But for the most part, as an agent, you can't, unless you have a brokerage or you have people working under you, you can't really say, hey, here's my guy, go walk houses with him. I'm sure that some people do, but that's not the customer service the client's looking for either.
Right.
Well, that's awesome. I can't wait to get into the actual construction stuff. So let's talk about new construction, right? That's a lot of what this call is going to be about. And I want to talk a lot about the differences between rehabbing and new construction, and why both of us never want to touch another rehab again. That's not to scare people away from it, because that played a really big role, at least with me, in how I am able now to accomplish new construction houses. But tell me your feelings on new construction, rehabbing, the difference of your involvement, the difference of your time invested between the two, and really give us a summary of why you would rather do new construction than rehabbing.
I would say that I'm probably not really good at rehabbing, because as many BPOs, broker price opinions really helped me figure out cost, because I had to do so many of them. And then along with my husband helping me with cost, if I didn't have the experience with the two, I would probably really be lost. But the very first one that I did was in the museum district in
Oh, nice. It's a
yes,
good area.
and I bought it from somebody that I knew at SunTrust, a different person at SunTrust. It was her mother's house, and I totally blew the budget. I did not have to take money to close in. At the end, after I paid the commissions and everything, I made $5,000, but I did have 25,000 in tax credits. I did do the state tax credits on it, which
Great.
came in very handy.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the things that I missed out on were just, you're dealing with an old house. This particular one was historical. I've had them before, like on Lamb Avenue, where we've had structural problems. I would actually buy them with structural problems disclosed because my husband's real good with structural issues. But they end up costing you more. You can put in $5,000 is what I would do on each one, but there's so many hidden things in them that I would blow my budget. And I made money on them, and I still do today, the ones that I have, but they're just not, they're not my cup of tea. And here's why. At the end of the day, it may look like a beautiful, gorgeous new home, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's still in that shell, right?
Yep.
And another story for another time was I had to tear a house down because of being in a flood zone, because of the amount of work that rehab that I was doing to it. And long story short, I had to raise it 5 feet midstream during my tear apart or tear it down. So at the end of the day, picture a 1937 house 5 feet in the air or 10 feet in the air, whichever height I decided to go with, $75,000, foundation under it. But at the end of the day, you still have a 1937 house.
Yeah.
So at that point in my life, that was about 4 years ago. When that happened, that really triggered me to like, I'm just done. I really don't want to do rehabs unless it's a killer deal, which I have gotten some. So I have done it, but I'm at the point now where no more, I'm not doing them. I'm going to sell them. So if I come across any, I'm going to just flip them to somebody else because I don't want them. So to answer your question, the new construction, it's just new. Everything's new. You have the warranties, and yes, you have warranties that come with your HVAC and your plumbing and everything when you do rehabs. But new construction, it's just a whole different animal for me. And I just see it a lot different. I don't want to go back to the old.
This is perfect for Trevor. I know he's in the chat and he's been talking about it for years. It's funny, rehabs have a tendency to bring us back because that's what it has brought us here. So we just did one recently, and let's just say the profit turned out to be about half of what we expected it to be. And that's with me when I consider myself really good at budgeting. So it's tough. What I notice when I talk to people like you, people like Trevor, people like Daniel, right, who they don't want to go back to rehabs. We're all people who care about it being done right. There are certain rehabbers out there, and I know it's nobody on this call, but there are certain rehabbers out there that don't really care. It's like, let's put some lipstick on it, sell it. Maybe we'll struggle through inspections, but we'll be good to go once it's out of our hands. And there's issues with that. There's your reputation's going to follow you. You shouldn't really feel good about that either, making money off of somebody else's potential downfall with the fact you're giving them not the product that they deserve. So people like us, we're fully gutting those properties. There's other people who are like, why don't we keep the plaster in the bedrooms and just cut it 4 feet and then finish it all off just to save a little money on drywall? And I think that shows so far to be a difference between people who want to transition into new construction because they're not sinking all that money in and making a great house, but also coming out with a little bit of profit, not as much as you could have.
And that is really true about what you're saying. My stepdaughter is an agent, and she sold a house in the Richmond area that was a flip. And she called my husband just about in tears with her client that he had, it was during that era where people were, and they still are, they're waiving inspections. And that's what these people did. And after they got in, it was a nightmare. And he went over there and really had to do a lot to help get it straight. And it's sad that that's done. It really is, because your name's on it and that person's name is on it, and I know who they are.
Yeah.
So
that's
not good.
I mean, the story that my brother went through recently, and I think a few people on the call to do as well. And it was really eye-opening because I've always tried to surround myself with other rehabbers who do the right thing. And I successfully have been around those people. I've seen other people's work who might not do it right. But my brother, to keep it short, he just bought a house, first house. He's very successful, his proud moment, bought the house, didn't even waive inspection. And this was during the time where he could, like, it was everybody was doing it. And now a year later, he's got a $40,000 repair that he can't find any remedy for, can't take legal action, can't get insurances, nothing, can't go through warranties. He's just SOL. He has to pay $40,000. I'm urging him not to and just sell the house, but it's a very, very heartbreaking situation. I can understand how people can end up in tears, because when I'm listening to his story, I'm just like, man, that it's hard to hear. It's hard to really come to grips with. And unfortunately, there are rehabbers. That was a flipped house he bought, and he knew the flipper because he had to deal with him through the inspection period. And needless to say, he didn't care about his product. Not during that point, not at this point, no point through the process did he care about the product. And now my brother's dealing with it, and he's newly married and is putting pressure on everybody. He wants to focus on his job and building his family, and you can't do that in that situation. So yeah, it's very, very tricky. Let's look at the Q&A real quick, because I see a bunch of people jumping in. How important necessary is it to have a PMP certification from Erica? PMP, am I missing something? What's a PMP certification?
I don't know.
Erica, why don't you tell us what that is real quick? Julian Jones, how do you determine the value of 100 acres of land after you divide it from one parcel into multiple parcels? Well, that's a whole other webinar, I think.
It is.
Do you have basic notes for him?
Well, what I do, it depends. Like, you have to know how many. All right, let me back up for a minute. I don't like red tape. So I don't like going through the entire plan of development process. I like doing what's called by right. What do I have the right to do with that property without having to go through a bunch of red BS, okay? Red tape BS. So I look for long road frontage. That's the first thing I do on a piece of property. And then I automatically know because I look in certain areas where I want to build, I know what I can legally, how many lots I can legally get out of that through a simple process. So that really depends. It's kind of a tricky question, because I don't look for 100-acre parcels, because I'm looking for smaller lots. Yeah. So I might look for a 6-acre parcel, because I might want 6-acre lot, one lot times 6, right? Yep. 6 1-acre lots. So when you get into 100 acres or 50 acres or even 20, that poses a whole new decision on whether to go for a full-blown subdivision, which is called a major subdivision, or sticking with the minor subdivision, which is what I like. I like the minors because I don't have to go through a bunch of cost. I've done that before, and I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
That's very interesting. So major and minor, I don't even know this. Is there a certain amount of lots that designates between those two?
It depends on the county or the city. I use county because I build in a lot of rural counties and subdividing counties. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the subdivision ordinance of the county that you want to build in, you look for minor subdivision and you look for major subdivision. Now, if you are not in this area, it's going to be similar terminology if you're out of state. So you're going to look for minor. Minor subdivision means by right. So one county might say, okay, by right, you have the right to subdivide up to 3 times, or you have the right to subdivide up to 5 times. So I can take that 5-acre parcel, depending on the county, and subdivide 3 ways or subdivide 5 ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
All right, so let me explain the flip side to that. If you want to develop, and I hear people say all the time, because I have a lot of people that contact me over the last couple of years about tiny homes, where they'll say, oh, I want to do a tiny home community. I want to do, yes, wouldn't everybody love to do a tiny home community, right? There would be like a mobile home park
I
similar,
would.
right? But you have to have some deep pockets and your numbers have to work. My numbers don't always work. That's why it's hard for me to buy land. I'm very picky about where I buy land and what I buy, because I'm looking at building small. I'm not looking at building a $400,000 and $500,000 house. I don't want to do that anymore. So I need my cost to be a lot less than that. So when you go to look at let's look at that 100-acre piece. When you look at the 100-acre piece, now all of a sudden you're going to fall, unless you want, three, if it's in one county, it's 3 parcels you can chop out of that 100 acres, right? Do you really want that? Probably not. You're going after density.
Yeah.
Well, if you even go to 5, you've got 5 parcels out of 100 acres. Do you really want to do that? I guess maybe if you're doing estate homes, it would probably be beautiful.
Right.
But if you want to do something small with high density, now you're talking about roads, you're talking about curb and gutter.
Yeah.
You're talking about if there's water and sewer available, you've got to run those lines as a developer through the subdivision.
Power
and you're
lines.
talking a lot of money, and you're talking 1 to 2 years, more likely on the 2-year mark.
Yeah.
You also have to go through public comment. Even though, well, let's just say if it has to be rezoned, you really have to go through a lot more steps. You're looking at 2 to 3 years at that point.
Yeah.
But if it's more of the just the plan of development, and what I mean by that is, suppose like Henrico County will allow 1-acre lots. So if I have 100 acres and I want to develop a subdivision, they will allow me to have 1-acre lots. This is on well and septic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have to have the appropriate amount of road frontage. I've got to create roads. I've got to have soil work done. The engineering work will probably cost about over 100 or 200,000 just for that project. So that's why you can see cha-ching keeps adding and adding and adding. And I don't have to go through anybody else's comments or complaints because they don't want my houses here. I don't have to deal with that. Now, I'm not saying that I won't do that. Okay. It just has to be the right project, and it has to be the numbers have to really, make good sense for me to go that route. Yeah. Then you kind of take what goes along with it. Right. And going that route, you just have to build a good rapport and let everybody know ahead of time that, hey, this is what I'm planning to do. I'd like your support on it, but I'd like to also show you exactly what I'm doing. That's how you react with neighbors, communicate with neighbors. You get involved with them early on, then you're going to know how the reaction is going to be when you actually go to the planning meeting in front of the board.
I love
There's
it.
a lot more steps to that. I'm just giving you like a quick shot of it.
No, it's great because a lot of what we're going to talk about is subdivisions. It's one of the main things I get questions about when it comes to the new construction side. Not only that, I think it's one of the main tools to be profitable as a developer. Infill lots are great, but nowadays you can't really find infill lots that allow for you to make good money. They might allow you to make some money, but not the margins that we're probably looking for. So it's a good segue into that. Before we do that, we have everybody showing how dumb we are because we don't know what a PMP is. Everybody's telling us project management professional. Makes sense. I do know Maria is a PMP, and Maria says, in her opinion, not necessary. And I agree. I don't think you necessarily. I mean, I guess the fact that me and Lisa didn't know what it is shows you that it's not necessary.
Not necessary.
Yeah.
I know Maria. She's great.
Oh yeah.
And she's a contractor as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's all the questions. Did I miss anything? I think we're good. Oh, answer this question for Sarah real quick, or we both can. Going back to the deck and salt treated lumber, do you wait that long, the same amount of time to put stain on? I would say yes. I think it's very similar, but you tell me what you think.
I think it would be similar. I waited a year on mine, and then on the next set I didn't, and that's when it came through. I would recommend what Brandon said. Try to get the deck done as soon as you can, and then right before you go to sell it or whatever your exit is, then you can go in and stain it and paint it. Staining might be a little bit easier. I'm really not sure because I use that paint part of the stain. It's the paint.
Yeah, the thick stain. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so to stay on subdivisions, we can go right back to Julian with this question. And it just piggybacks off what we're talking about. He says, back to the 100-acre question. The subdivision has been approved for 200 homes. The adjoining subdivision, does that mean a separate property, I'm guessing, Julian? Not the one you're looking at, I'm guessing. Home prices range from 450 to 700. Plan is to subdivide into 70. Okay, so that's a different one, and sell to the builder. How should I prep the land to make it most attractive to a builder?
Well, the developer is responsible for getting those lots ready. So you've got the builder on one side who's just coming in to buy the lot ready to build on. Okay. The developer is responsible for all of the site work, for bringing in all the utilities, for building the roads, curb, gutter, if that's required, running the sewer, water, everything. The builder is only going to come in and buy that lot so they can go and pay a proffer or pay for their building permit and then start building.
And
So
that would be like probably more of like a custom home. You're getting big builders like Ryan Homes and stuff like that to come in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And they're paying 100 plus for the lots.
Yeah. That's a whole different level, I would say, for sure.
It is, for sure.
The most I've subdivided was 4 ways. I know you've done more in quantity and in volume, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The number of subdivisions plus with how much you split each one. But yeah, once you get into that realm, I would say you're talking about big money. A lot of those are publicly traded companies that are buying your lots. You got to have the connections with those companies. And I would say you have to have those relationships pretty early on to make sure.
Okay,
that
and
they
here's
even
the
wanna
other
buy.
thing.
Yeah.
You have to take down the land. And when we write a contract on land, it's all subject to county approval. So it stretches out, right, until we get that approval. But once that approval is done and you have to close, you've likely got, bank loans at that point. So you're having to carry that interest not only on the land, but on all of the development cost, which is, that's where you're getting a lot of cost involved. Somebody that's really, really good with development is Matt. Gosh, I know him. He's like a friend of mine. And Matt Starr. Matt Starr is really, really good with development. He's done a lot of developments.
Love it. So tell us about nowadays when you're looking to subdivide land. First of all, if you had your ideal project, would it be something like that where you can take a land, subdivide it, and put multiple houses on it?
I normally look for 6 acres and under. That's
Okay.
kind of my sweet spot.
6 and under.
That's what works for me for my little houses. I like the 6 acres because I can subdivide up to 6 ways, depending on the county. Another county's 3, another county's 5. So I have 3 counties. And so I tend to look for 6 and under and I look for a lot of road frontage because I don't want to build the road.
Yeah.
I need to keep my costs down. I want that $50,000-$100,000 lot that I can chop up 6 ways and divide by 6, and that'll tell you my land cost plus my engineering, which isn't that much. Gotcha. And then I file my paperwork with the county and get that approved, and it's all recorded. So it's easy. And then you start building, right? You start applying for your permit. Yep. That's called the minor subdivision.
So that answers Clyde's question, I think so too. And Roger, Lisa builds in Richmond and the surrounding counties and in Deltaville, where I think she is right now, where I'm going to be vacationing soon.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so subdivisions, let's kind of stay on it for a little bit more. When I'd like to give everybody on the call a quick rundown of what the process looks like. I'd also like to equip them with the things that they need to look out for, um, that could end up biting them in the butt, right? For example, um, let's think of an example for me. I didn't pay attention for my first subdivision on what I had to do for stormwater. We had to put basins in. We had to make sure it's running off the lot into, the nearby ditch essentially. And it probably added another 5 to 10,000 because we had to put multiple basins. We had to build them early, and then we have inspectors who are constantly checking it. So let's start at the beginning. What does that process overall look like? Overall, it's got to be just general. And what are the big things for people to look out for? And I'll prep it a little bit more by saying I think most people get burned in the planning subdividing process, not knowing that they have to spend, for example, on a road, or an alley or a basin or stormwater runoff, right?
I'll tell you one that I'm waiting to hit me is the overlay of the street, because we've dug in so many times to the sewer. So I'm probably going to have to overlay the street or half of the
Oh,
street.
wow.
They
I'm gonna
haven't
write that
hit,
down for myself.
yeah, they haven't hit me with it yet, but I probably will get hit with that. So I've already kind of pre-planned that, but that's something that could happen.
It's really good.
Stormwater, with stormwater, I do the in lieu of, because I'm not disturbing more than 2,500 square feet. And that's
where
a
I wanted to
rule
go
for the
next.
city of Richmond. So actually it's Virginia. So if you're outside of Virginia, you may or may not, some of the southern states have the same type laws. What it is within, if you're within 100 feet from a ditch that has water in it, because that's what mine ended up being. Typically, it's like a stream water. We have the James River going through the city in Richmond. We have a lot of creeks, or like with this instance, ditches that somebody hand dug with a backhoe that has water in it, but it's not a creek, right? But the city, because of the James River running through the city and it all kind of comes from Virginia, but the city determines where at in the city, that the resource protection area and the resource management area, it has designated areas on where they're located.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a big surprise to me in the city where some lots are that I'm building on now. It delayed my project. So yes, it cost me money. It cost me a lot of money. Maria's familiar with this project. We've talked about this several times. So yeah, this it can be challenging when you are near a stream. Okay, so I'll tell you a quick story. Whenever I hear agents saying or reading in the MLS or a stream on the property, I'm like, next.
Yeah.
I'm like, next. Pond on the property, I'm like, next. And for some people, it might be a wonderful thing. For me, it means flooding and it means regulation. But the number one thing is regulation, and I don't want it. Now, I'm not saying I might not look at it a little bit further, but it depends on where it's located on that lot or how big the lot is.
Makes sense. I think there's a lot of times, like Henrico has this one area where, or multiple areas, but this one where I've been multiple times where it's in a floodplain. So you got to do the insurance, you got to do permits, and inspections and all that stuff. And you're just like, it's extra processes, but that's on a small scale. That's talking rehabbing. But when it comes to subdividing, one thing I would make sure everybody understands when we're talking about stormwater, land disturbance, erosion, sediment control, that is a huge part that people overlook. I'll give you some background of what we do in Richmond. In your area, you said 2,500. In Richmond, I think 4,000 square feet is the amount that you can disturb before you actually have to do the erosion and sediment control plan. And in Richmond, let's talk normal houses, not tiny homes, 4,000 square feet is going to be everything to build one house, because it's not just the foundation of the house that they're counting, They're counting 5 feet out of each one because that's all going to be disturbed land. It's talking about your walkways and 5 feet off your walkways. It's talking about your parking pads, 5 feet off your parking pads. So it's really easy to get to 4,000 square feet, and it's really hard to build 2 houses without exceeding that rule. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I've heard you talk about it before and you put it in a great way, what it means to be a developer in that situation and how you could potentially get around that. Because, and sorry to cut you off.
That's okay.
The reason people want to avoid that, let me just say why. Very expensive, very costly in time too. So the last one I did cost $30,000 and took them 6 to 8 months to get it done. So you want to avoid that as much as possible.
All right, so I'll tell you what happened to me. You know, in this business, I don't ever know everything. I don't want to know everything. You know what I'm saying? It's like you learn by your mistakes. That's the way I've always learned, by my mistakes.
Yep.
And so I bought this land. I bought the whole left side of a road back in mid 2018. This will tell you how long this has been going on. Now I've rezoned them. It was 6 lots, and then I bought 2 houses on the same left side after that. But for the lots, I rezoned them. So that was a 6-month process. And then I find out just from one of my engineers in a comment, he said, well, the city's only gonna let you build one at a time. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, what? And so then I learned a whole new lesson about the RMA, resource management area. Long story short, I had to get my engineering firm to do wetland delineation. I had to bring in the Corps of Engineers to confirm what my engineering firm found, which was a drainage ditch that had been dug on the property behind all of my lots, not even on my lots. They were about maybe 6 feet, some 10 feet off the lot. They dug a ditch to relieve some water from their pond on their property. All of that cost me about 2 years of hold time. Now, the owner financed all of my properties, which was wonderful. I didn't have to deal with banks. Everything was on owner finance, but Lisa's making payments, right? Mm-hmm. Lisa's making payments on everything, which were very minimal. I got the lots like dirt cheap. If Brandon knew what I bought them for, you would like, what? but that's when it all kind of opened up for me. And I'll be the first to tell you, I have a really good relationship with everybody. As long as things make sense, I'm good, right? But when you start getting into things that just aren't even common sense, I have issues and it comes out and I can't help it. So me and Water Resources lady, who's no longer there, don't get along. But I ended up only being able to build one house at a time. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to build more than one at a time, it was going to cost me $25,000 more for stormwater management. Yep. So I chose to do the 2,500 land and under land disturbance. And like Brandon said, that includes the house, 5 feet around for the workers to work. This is around the silk fence. So you've got to put the silk fence in for your driveway, the workaround for the contractors, and your buildable area. So 2,500 square feet is not a lot of room. And I'll give you an example. I was building an 1,118 square foot house that was 1,300, and I had to take it down to that to get it to work under that 2,500. So you're better off if you buy in an area like this, or if you're in a state where you have regulations like this, you really probably want to build up. Right? Yeah. Just build up is what I recommend. It's what I should have done, but trying to keep everything conforming with what was already on the road. For me to go in with 2-story homes, because I care about my projects. I care about where they are. My name is on them. So I want them to look uniform. I want them to look good. I want people to ride down that road and be proud to, not just look like, oh, these 2- and 3-story houses over here and then 1-story and capes over here.
Yep.
So just some things that I wish my engineering firm had educated me on, and not to point blame because I should know this stuff too, but some things you're just not going to know and you're going to learn by your mistakes. And that's what happened with me.
You don't know till you know, right? You said
Right.
something that's so huge. And the idea of what we all want to do when we give our information out, because we don't know everything. We're good at certain parts of the business. Other people are good at certain parts of the business. But our goal is to make sure people don't make big mistakes, right? And you can learn this from people who already made the mistakes. Because I'll tell you, if you make say we're talking about 25,000, 30,000, let's not even call it a mistake, but overlooking that, you'll never overlook that again. It's
That's
the
right.
best way to learn for the rest of your life. Those scars stay with you. Whether you call them scars, learning lessons, they stay with you. So that is part of being a builder. You just got to make sure you don't make the big mistakes. And that's a big thing for everybody to pay attention to. If you're looking to summarize what we're talking about, if you're looking to split land or subdivide land, those are two different things. Splitting is just taking it two ways. Subdividing is anything more. But either way, if you're disturbing over the land disturbance minimum in your area, whether that's 4,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet, you're either going to have to build them one at a time. That adds 6 months to what you were probably thinking, or you have to pay 25,000 and wait the 6 months for the engineering to come back to solve the issue with the city, solve the issue, to give the city what they need to see. So if there's anything you can take away from this, if you're subdividing, splitting, make sure you understand your land disturbance minimums and what it requires to either get away from that or to give the city what they need. Right.
Yes, because DEQ can step in at any time in these areas. So
Yeah.
you really have to take this seriously. Not, I'm just going to do what I want to do. It doesn't work like that. You may, but that's not how you have to operate. You have to operate by the rules and by the permits. And one other thing that I was going to mention is I was in a situation where I could only build one at a time or go that route, right? So we built that one, and then I'm trying to figure out how am I going to get to more than one? I can't do this over a 5-year period. I just can't do it. I'm losing money. I'm going to sell the lots. I don't want to sell the lots. I want to build them. So the lady at Water Resources, this, I'll tell you all real quick what didn't make sense that I had a really hard time with. They told me that because all of the lots were consecutive that I was trying to build on, she didn't know I bought one that was kind of off the beaten path that I'm building on now. But if I had deeded those in, and I have this in writing, so I'm not like, y'all don't think I'm crazy when I tell you this, okay? This is where I get like really bent out of shape. Okay, so if you go to the Code of Virginia, believe me, I've studied the code. It states that if the lots are consecutive, so basically what it is the lots are consecutive. They're all beside each other, right?
Yep.
I can only build one at a time because they're all under my construction company's name. I didn't put them in a trust like I normally do.
Uh-huh.
So I said in writing, so you're telling me that if I had deeded, no, I didn't say it that way. If I had sold each one of these lots to a different person and each lot was deeded in a different name, then each one of these people could build, correct? And she said, yes. I said, but since I own all of these in a row under my one construction company name, you're saying that I can't build. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Okay. So I had to keep reiterating. So basically, I said this to her. I said, basically, you want me to commit fraud by deeding it into another company name of mine or somebody else's so that I can build on it. That's my only way around it. Is that what you're saying? So anyway, we kind of got into a little bit of it on that because so basically I couldn't do anything until that property in the middle of those lots sold to a new buyer. Then on the figure outable part, now I could build one on each side of that house. So now I've got two going. And then I have a house I flipped in between them and another lot so I could build on that one. But I can't build on 2 other lots until one of those sells and has a new owner. So it's a mess if you build in those areas and don't understand.
It's a great tip for everybody that not everything makes sense. It literally makes zero sense. I just learned this within the past 3 years as well. And yeah, all we had to do is put it in a different name. And what's so interesting is the guy who does my permits, he's like, don't ask questions. They know what's happening. Just do it. You're like, but they make the rules. So why if they think this is okay, why not just give us new rules or something? He explained it to me. It has to do with coming from even the top, like Virginia, down to the counties down.
It
But
is.
it makes no sense.
But
And
see, at
it
that
makes it
point,
hard.
I mean, for me, I mean, it was total fraud, and I'm not doing that. But
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm like, really? I could have just deeded each one in a trust, had a different trustee, and then they said, well, you can't be the builder on each one of them because you're the developer. So there were there other little things in there they didn't like, and
Semantics. Yeah.
I just didn't. You know, I got the lots at a great price. The values have gone up, so I feel like everything's okay. But I can tell y'all, it was a lot to go through over somebody digging a ditch with
Not on your
what they
property.
called was a stream. I had to prove it was not a stream.
How do you prove that? I guess
Engineering, and
engineer.
then the Corps
Yeah.
of Engineers had to come out. And I don't know if any of you have ever had to wait on the Corps of Engineers, but you're looking at 6 to 9 months just to get them out there.
Yeah. And they're
So
not cheap
it's
either. All right. I'm going to go through questions because I know you guys are throwing them out there, and that's awesome. So, Julian, again, thanks for all the participation, by the way. What is the most prohibitive cost to building a tiny home community? 10 to 20 tiny homes. So
I've
I
never
don't think
built
she
10.
builds that much. Yeah.
No, I don't because I don't want to put in roads. Now,
Right.
I would do 10 to 20 if I had all of that land on the road frontage.
Mm-hmm.
Then because then I wouldn't have to build a road. That's just my preference. You have to, and it depends on the county. Most of them are going to make you pave it. Some of them won't. They'll just make you, make it to state specs,
Yeah.
depending on the state you're in. But something you can go and talk to them about when you use, this is my recommendation. If you're going to have tiny homes on wheels, it's very different than tiny homes on foundations. Make sure you're clear about that when you go and sit down and talk to someone, because most people automatically assume when you say the word tiny home, they associate it with wheels.
Yeah.
And then their red eyes start coming out at you. Okay. Because they think of like a mobile home park,
Yeah.
or they think of an RV park because that's what they fall under, an RV. So just specify, or let's say little homes, or I call them teeny homes for that reason.
And it sounds like most prohibitive costs would be what you've been mentioning. If you have to put roads in, infrastructure, stuff like that. I agree. I don't want to mess with that stuff. It sounds like a lot of process to go through in itself.
Think about all the lots and small acreages that are around, y'all.
Oh, yeah.
Think about how easier it would be to just do small stuff. I'm just giving you my opinion. That's why I stay small. I've been involved in these bigger projects. I know what they cost. I've got a lot of money tied up in one particular project that would make another great story to do based on how it was subdivided. But I just choose to stay small, and just do more that way.
I like that too. I think when you start going that extra tier, like those 100 lots, you got to bring in partners, money, lawyers, probably. You got to build a team. That's why those companies are huge companies. We started off the call this way, and I think there's a big theme around everything I do, you do, we do, which is we want to be our own boss, which means we don't want to make big top tier teams that are all putting their hands in the pie. We want to build something that we're proud of, something that we can control completely, or at least for the most part, majority. And I wouldn't consider subdividing a lot 4 ways, 5 ways, 6 ways as necessarily small compared to where a lot of us started as real estate investors anyway. So,
And it depends on where you're from. I have
Mhm.
friends in Alabama, they don't have zoning laws. Mississippi, they don't have zoning laws. They can go in and bring in 10 and 20 mobile homes
Mhm.
and bring in their water line and their septic or sewer lines. They can do that. And it's wonderful that they can do that. We just can't do that where I am.
Right. Is adding an ADU considered new construction in Richmond, Henrico? Is there a lot of red tape, and what steps do we take to get started with building an ADU?
Hey,
Yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know too much about it, so I'll let you start.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So first of all, it's per property. So you have to make sure you have to actually go or call. I like to go in person. Everything I do with county or city is
Huge
in
tip.
person.
Yep.
And believe me, I don't like going to city hall, but sometimes you just do what you got to do, right? Or
Yeah.
have someone else do it for you. But I like to be in front of somebody and build that relationship. Then they know who you are, especially in the smaller rural counties where they have 1 or 2 people in the planning department and they'll get to know you. And so what you want to do is just go in. Well, first of all, one way you can tell is to go into the zoning ordinance and look for accessory dwelling unit, accessory dwelling apartment, accessory dwelling use. Now, an accessory can be a pool. So you have to look for the word dwelling or apartment. And Henrico County, just a year and a half, September, almost 2 years ago, started allowing ADUs. And the reason they started allowing ADUs is because of the shortage of homes. So if you have a rental property, you should definitely be considering how you can have a tiny home designed as an ADU in your backyard, and it would be another source of income for you. But so different areas have different regulations. Henrico County, I can tell you, I don't know what their requirement is on their ADU. For a new construction, it's 900 square feet. Just on a regular lot, they have a minimum of 900 square feet.
Mhm.
But on the ADU, typically what it is it's 50% of the main dwelling. And it can't be over like 800 square feet. So everybody has their own, rule with that. That's a common one. So if you have a 2,000 square foot main dwelling and they have an 800 square foot cap, you can only have an 800 square foot ADU in the backyard.
Yeah.
If you have a 1,000 square foot house and you want to put an ADU in the backyard, your cap would be at 500, which is half of the 1,000, but they may have a cap on that. So it depends on where it's at. Now, Henrico County requires that a family member, unless they've changed it, I don't think they have in the 2 years, requires that you either have to live in one of the dwellings as the owner of the property or have a family member. Some of them require family members only. They don't allow you to rent them out. So
Yeah.
they can be very strict. The city, I don't know, because I'm not building ADUs on these new builds that I'm doing in the city, because I'm selling these. If you are going to build a house with an ADU, so if you're going to build a house and an ADU like I do, like I have in Deltaville, you really need to be careful and make sure that there are comps out there, sale comps out there that have an ADU, or you won't get credit for that ADU.
Great.
It's very tricky.
Yeah.
And it can be very upsetting.
The only thing I can add, because I have very little experience with ADU, so now I know where to direct everybody who's been asking me the questions. But the one thing I know for sure is there's a huge push nationally to start easing the restrictions because of density issues. Because their infill lots are getting blown away. They already know that subdivisions are hard for people and there's a lot of red tape. So ADUs are great options. So I think even in Richmond, there's a proposal that will be released soon, whether it's approved or not, or what the actual ruling is going to be, what the changes are going to be, like right now. I think I heard that at the event we were at last week. Somebody was telling me that. So keep an eye on the rules, because I think they're going to be changing rather consistently for the next 5 years, maybe.
And I will tell you this, the officials don't know what people want unless you tell them. Okay. So if you're just sitting back waiting to see what they're going to allow, don't go there. Tell them, I want to build an ADU in my yard, because if 10 people come in there and say, I want to build an ADU, that's what happened in Henrico. I talked to the guy. He told me in the planning department, he told me that's why they've changed it and brought it up in front of the planning commission. And that's another good place to bring it up, because then it's of official public record at that point. If you go to the planning meetings, I love attending planning and board of supervisor meetings of where I am building and where I'm developing, because you're 10 steps ahead of where everybody else is. They're not going to hear about it unless they go to these meetings. So when water comes in, if you get public water coming in, you're going to know 2 months before really anybody really knows. And so you can go after some land. I did that. I went after and bought land cheap in certain areas where I know public utilities are coming. So I'm all in. Okay. I'm all in on the new construction. So I am all in on knowing what's going on in the areas that I am building in and investing in and developing in.
2 huge tips to take home. If you're developing, be in City Hall, sit at the table across from people, rub elbows, make those relationships. The second thing that's huge, when you go to those, when you go and actually hear from the city what they're talking about, what they're doing, that sometimes is the only way you hear about it. I hear about things from inspectors if I'm not in City Hall or if I'm not in those meetings. Sorry. And I'll learn about it like 2 months after it happened. And I'll be like, how did I not know this? But they don't send out a flyer. They don't post it all over their website. It's just something they do under the scenes until you get burned by it. So those are 2 huge tips. Ronnie, good to see you here. What's the rule of thumb when buying a lot or the first thing to think about?
The first thing I think about is I want to know if it's going to perk, if there's a soil test that's already been done on it by the seller, which they should be. A seller selling a property should be able to tell you whether it has a perk site on it or not. That's if for a septic system, or if it's public utilities, it'll say, they'll be able to tell me if it's public, and then I can always go and verify all the information. Don't take anybody's word for anything. Always verify the information that's given to you. If it has soil work done on it, I will look at that soil work. Most people don't know this, but when an AOSE, which is a soil scientist evaluator, when they come out, they're engineers. When they come out, at least in my area in Virginia, and they look at a piece of property and they test the soil, they send a report into the health department. So that becomes of record, that soil work. That soil work can be used. It has to be updated and some changes may be made. But if it's like from 2000 and it said it was a conventional system on it, unless something has significantly changed with that lot, you just have the soil evaluator come back, the engineer come back out with that, and you provide them with that paperwork. And that should still hold today. Okay, I'm not saying it always will, but you have a really good chance that that'll hold today. And that's what I like to look for. So Ronnie, I'm looking for conventional septic, because this alternative septics are $30,000 and $40,000 now. Those numbers don't work real good with me with my little houses.
I'd also say, Ronnie, that I think a lot of it has to do with your exit strategy and your area. For example, every house I've built so far, it's going to happen in the future, but I don't need to worry about septic. They're all city water, city sewer. But if I'm looking to sell it, then I need to back out my costs and make sure that there's no site development, extra costs up front that I have to worry about. I got to make sure my price per square foot is going to work for the level of home that, I'm just doing basic math, making sure that there's nothing big that's going to hit me. And a lot of that is understanding zoning guidelines. Ronnie, you're in my group, so we're going through that this month. So I'll give you the things that I'm looking at. But yeah, so I think a lot of it depends on exit strategy, which could be a good transition to us talking about Airbnbs. but we have so many questions that I want to respect our attendees. So let's start with them. Let's see if we can get to Airbnbs afterwards. Jim, I'll answer yours real quick. I wonder if they were under a separate LLC, would that have worked? We're talking about land disturbance and all that. Yes, it would. It's one of those weird things that some people in the city are going to look down on you for it or not going to like it. And then some people in the city are going to say, wink, wink, this is the only way around it. So there is a little bit of, playing around with what you feel most comfortable with.
I think at that point, I don't know if he's referring to those consecutive lots or not, but if he is in that question, then yes, a separate LLC would have worked, a separate trust. I normally buy everything in a trust. I just didn't do it then because I was going to build them and exit pretty quick. But I think if my name was tied to them, it could have been an issue. It could have still been an issue.
Yeah, you still got to be careful. I'll tell you the truth. That's why I separate myself as much as possible. I have a permit runner. He does everything. I could run permits if I wanted to. I can keep a little distance and only jump in when I have to. I'm always there in the beginning, right? Feasibility, making sure this works. But once they're like, yeah, green light, go, they put in writing, my runner's doing everything. So
That's
Tiffany has two good questions for you. One's a request. For Richmond, is tiny allowed in the whole MSA or only one city/county? And then she asks, can we set up a tour of her properties here?
Yes, you can, anytime. The one that I'm starting now is just like the teeny home that he showed in the beginning. I'm actually building that now, but I've made it a little bit bigger just because I like an extra half bath in it. And so it ends up being 816 square feet. My permits were approved. They're actually digging the footing as we speak, inspecting it tomorrow, and pouring concrete on Thursday. Didn't have any issues getting my permit. I don't think the city has a requirement for new homes, square footage requirement. I didn't even look, honestly, and normally I do, but because there's so many small homes in the city already, I figured it wouldn't matter. This is on a 1/4 acre lot, but I like the small houses because I'm probably going to get multiple people that want it. Okay. It's just the price point. I should be able to get $250 for it easy. There's a house on the road, somebody that I know, he's a broker. He sold his house. It has asbestos siding. It was 800 square feet, 1960s, I believe, really cute inside. Sold for $250, and I've got a brand new one. So I'll get $250 easy for 816 square feet on the same size lot.
I love it. I mean, and one thing I wanted to talk about today, and maybe we get to it, but I see tiny homes, teeny homes as the only feasible antidote to the problem we have with affordability and inventory. 3D homes has proven to not be where it needs to be. Modular homes, same thing. These are coming in fads, coming and going. Like modular homes, 2018 to maybe 2016 to 2020, everybody was talking about it. Maybe not even that far back, but nobody talks about it anymore. Same with 3D homes. And they're promising, but I think not as promising as teeny homes, especially as, the younger generations coming up, they're a little bit more minimalistic, right? A little bit more resource conscious, I guess you could say. So, and they don't have that much money nowadays either with all the student loans and all that stuff. So you're appealing to affordable housing, which I think is a huge issue in America, potentially one of the biggest issues, not just in real estate, but in all the economy. So that's Tiffany. By the way, everybody, Maria's putting great stuff in the questions in the chat, great information and stories. So make sure you're paying attention to what she's saying. Julian, can we contract your company to build new construction? I can almost guarantee Lisa's answer, but my answer is unfortunately no. But what about you, Lisa? Do you do any contracting work?
No, I get asked a lot, especially
Yeah,
with the little houses, but we're so busy just working on our own stuff. And to be honest with you, we have custom built for years and it's not fun. It's
you're
just
a
not,
contractor.
it's
Yeah.
not fun. We can make a lot more just doing our own. I'm sorry, but no, I can't do it.
Sorry, Julian. We'll help in other ways though. Sarah, Henrico. So Sarah's got great notes here too. Awesome. Thanks, Sarah. Oh, she's got it all here. She's got bullet points. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Some people got to run. Oh, wow. She's got even more.
800 square feet, or 20% of the overall square footage. So that the 800 square feet must be for the ADU. Yeah, and you do have you do have to go through the special use permit. The county, Henrico County is all about control. Okay. So they want you to come in front of them and tell them what you're going to do with that. And when they issue you, if they approve your special use permit, they will require that you renew it every 2 years. I think it's every 2 years. You have to come back in front of the board. So
Oh,
basically,
yeah.
you're telling them who's living in the house. It's
Mhm.
all about control. Go rural, y'all. Go rural. Powhatan loves ADUs.
That's a great point. Do they really? I've heard
Mhm.
Powhatan's difficult, but I don't
No,
know that that's hearsay. So you know how that goes.
no, they approve ADUs.
Roger, it's a good question. Do both of you build entry level homes or trade up homes? Why? Um, I guess you could call mine trade up. That's mainly where I am, and I think Lisa's the alternative, but I'll let her answer for herself.
I don't really understand the question.
So trade up, and honestly, first time I heard this was on our webinar with Daniel. Actually, I think he told me before, but he's the person who told me about trade up is like entry level home is probably, I guess, in our area, 250 if that exists nowadays, to maybe 350. And then that second home that a family or a young couple is moving into, probably more like 400 to 500 in my area. I guess that would be considered the trade up home.
Yeah, I don't do the trade up homes. I do minimal.
Yep.
Now hold on. Let me rephrase that. In these houses, we put in the premium pergo flooring.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't like carpet, so we put it in either hardwood. So it depends. We like to keep them very nice. So
Yep.
we put in the nice stainless steel or nice top of the line black Whirlpool appliances. We do nice stuff, granite countertops. So we put in everything nice and tile. But as far as like, we try to keep we basically do it by square footage because we like it to be like an entry level home or an affordable home for someone. And the
Yeah.
reason is because I feel like it's a guaranteed sale. And if it's not a guaranteed sale, it's a guaranteed rental, right? Somebody's going to want that house. If I'm building
Yeah.
a 400 and 500 square foot house, excuse me, $400,000 or $500,000 house, that scares me, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the interest rates the way they are.
Sure.
I don't want to carry that interest payment on that.
Yeah.
And I don't want that house to sit.
Right.
So that's why I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I'm gonna try to do it and keep that cost down as much as I can.
Well, I would say that you're probably the most important class of builders right now because not many people are doing that.
They're not.
Yeah. And like I said, that's if I would put right now the most important group of builders, rehabbers, investors, anybody bringing homes to the market, it's new construction affordable house builders. So you're doing a great, not only building great products, but doing a great service to the real estate market and to the area too.
Thank you. Just can't
Yeah.
find enough lots at a decent
Yeah,
enough price.
that's the
Can't
only
build them
issue.
quick enough. Seriously,
Yeah.
I just can't get them built quick enough.
All right, let's go. Let's see. Why choose tiny homes over manufactured homes?
I don't have anything against manufactured homes. I'm just not a fan. I want something that's going to continue to appreciate and value and last 100+ years after I'm dead and gone. That's just my personal opinion on it. And then Julian asked a question. You're positioned to make 250,000 No, I'm not going to make $250,000 on a house in Richmond. I have my lot cost, I have my build cost. I have my infrastructure costs with water and sewer. Just my sewer laterals, 13,000. And then my city tap fees are 7,200. So no, I'm not going to make $250,000. That house will sell for $250,000. So I have my build costs, my lot costs, all that stuff has to be deducted, commissions. But I will do really well on that house.
What would
because of
you
the
say
lot.
it's a good question. What would you say your profit margin is?
On
The
on
sales
this one,
price.
it's going to be about 90.
Oh, 90K, the
Mhm.
full, okay. What percentage, do you have a percentage
Average.
wise?
I don't usually figure it up by the percentage. I
By the
don't.
way, 90 is phenomenal.
I know it is. But
That
they're
is
not all
that is
they're
a
not
high
all like that.
percentage.
They're not
Sure.
all like that. Just a little flip on that road, I made 100.
Trying to find my
So
calculator.
it's pretty good. I got my lot really cheap on that. My build cost will run me. I should be about 120 to 125 on my build cost. And then I have that just includes my build cost. That doesn't include my tap fees, my permit fees, and my lateral. That doesn't include
Sure.
those fees.
That's
But
usually,
yeah.
yeah, that's a good point too, because I tell people all the time, I talked about this a little bit last week, but I tell people all the time, you need to know certain numbers, right? And a huge number, if you want to get into building, is price to build per square foot. So that's the number we're always sharing, right? Like builders come up to each other, hey, how much do you build for? But that usually is hard costs or just the cost for the structure. There's site development that's different, utilities, water, sewer, clearing trees, the erosion sediment control, basins, stuff like that. That's all extra. So when people are talking about price to build, that usually is just the structure, because there's no way of really accurately comparing all the site development costs. Every site's different. So
That's right. And they vary depending on where the utilities are located on the street, how much you have to clear, just like you were saying, that all varies. But yeah, the build cost itself is where we are on that price. But yeah, that'll probably see what I'm saying here though. Here you've got an 816 square foot house that we're going to make more on than a 1,200 square foot house.
Oh, then a 2,000 square foot house.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
exactly.
I just did your percentage, 36% for 90K profit on 250,000 sale. I know they're not all like that, but even if you drop,
that's huge.
Yeah, we're lucky to get 20%.
Wow.
5,000 is probably so we're making as much as you're making essentially, but building a lot bigger, and a lot more. So this is a huge, huge strategy for developers. That's why it's such a pleasure to have you on to talk about all this stuff. I have a couple of things here. Billy, just want to help you out here. Can't see anyone's questions but Julian's. That sounds like you might be looking at the answered ones, because I've been trying to click answered here as much as I can, but I kind of gave up on it. Yeah, so make sure you're looking at the open questions, not the answered questions. Trevor, I will send out notes. I'll get this transcribed, send out notes. That would be awesome. It's a great idea. I'm taking notes here anyway, so I'll send them out to this group along with the replay. How much do you keep versus sell? That's a good question from Tiffany.
Right now, I'm mostly just selling because I want to.
Okay.
I'm just got a little bit different strategy that I'm using, and then I'm going to keep everything else after that. So I'm building a certain amount to sell, and then I'm going to keep everything else after.
Love it. Thomas says, oh wait, Sarah. So Sarah's just given all sorts of information. Awesome. Thomas, I want to do tiny homes in Gloucester. Do you know Thomas, Lisa?
Is he from Gloucester?
Yeah. So
I think so. I think we may have met at
Williamsburg, maybe.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm actually looking at some property there as well for some tiny homes. Gloucester's one of my areas that I like.
you should reach out to him because he's constantly sending me deals from Gloucester, and unfortunately it's a little too far for me. So I try to look at them, but they don't always work, or for the most part, they usually don't work just because of travel time. I'm one of those lazy developers where all of my houses are within a mile, like legitimately all my houses.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I might have lied. 1 mile is excessive, but they're all within 5 miles, let's say.
I'm in 4 counties, so
Yeah.
Gloucester's one of them.
That's why you got your dog to go on trips with you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thomas, we need to connect. I'm writing his last name down. I think he's the same one that I waited for the last time I was there, and he was busy the whole time talking to somebody.
Oh, Thomas, too busy for Lisa.
Yes.
Yeah, Thomas is great. He's in the group too, so you'll see him in.
Okay, awesome.
Julian, both of you share contact info. I'm an NC, buy and invest. Let me know if this works, Julian, but if you use my QR code that says contact, you can get my information there. I'm gonna let Lisa decide if she wants to give away her contact.
Oh yeah, I don't care.
Okay, she'll throw it in the Q&A, or I can send it out in a follow-up email too, if that's easy.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Mid-30s, want to do what you're doing at Capital Credit Good. How do I get started now? Start making offers. I would just start making offers.
Find the area that you want to build in.
Yep. And tell everybody you're buying land. The great thing about being a developer is wholesalers can only bring land to like 5 people they know for the most part, maybe 10 if they really know a lot of people. But that's one of my favorite parts about building new construction is I'm not going on Facebook bidding against everybody else on Facebook looking at the rehab. When it's land, typically, if they know what they're doing, they're going straight to the developer saying, hey, I got land. What do you need to know? Here's a price. And they're working with you a lot more directly. So let everybody know you're buying land and you want to do tiny homes, new construction, etc. All right, guys, it's 1:30, so we've been at it for a while. I can't keep Lisa too long, so why don't you guys let me know if we have any more questions? Do either of you buy teardowns to build? I do, yes. And if you're a developer, your job is to be creative and have a vision. That's 2 incredibly important parts of being a developer. So a lot of that includes tearing down old residential buildings, old commercial buildings. That's a big part of the process. Yep. Any other questions? Not in your area, but possible. Oh yeah, the group's not focused on one area. You can also use a QR code if it's working to join now, or even the contact. You can find out more information with the group. It's an awesome group. We don't sell it here on these calls, but it's an awesome group and it has everything you need. And for the next month, we're going to be doing nothing but new construction. So
I will say this, and by all means, Brandon doesn't even know I'm getting ready to say this, but if it wasn't for my husband teaching me everything that I know about new construction because he is a builder, I would have been lost. And so if you don't have a mentor, you really do need a mentor with this, because it has its challenges. Nothing's easy, but it's just something that you grow to love after you get the first one behind you. It becomes addicting.
Yeah.
And you definitely need somebody you can lean on, because you will have your ups and downs with it, just like anything else.
Oh yeah, it's a community. One of the biggest parts about having that group is just we're all sharing in the same successes, the same gripes, the same struggles. And I gotta stop saying this. I say it all the time, or given this comparison, but I compare it all the time to people who are in the corporate world. And one thing that they have over top of us is that camaraderie of all the people to the left and to the right who are sharing with, they can gripe together, they can moan and groan together, they can cheer together, they can always contact each other if they're having a good day or a bad day. You don't get that a lot in this business. And more than that, you don't get the full support of everybody's experiences and you know, the things they've gone through in the past. So yeah, being involved with groups is incredibly important. I'm involved with multiple, and I look at every group I've joined as one of the best decisions I've made in my business. Yeah, every
For
single
me too.
individual one. Yeah. Either of you offer mentorship? Check out my group again, Julian. It's not necessarily a mentorship. In a way, it is. It's not very hands-on, but it's as hands-on as I can possibly be. We have a group there who can help you out as well. Have you ever done anything in Matthews County? Neil, what's up, man? I haven't. What about you, Lisa?
I have. Yeah, it's a little challenging because there's a lot of swampy lands down in Matthews. So you have to really look at those maps. The GIS maps is what I look at, and look at the floodplains in that area. I don't buy in floodplains. I don't say I won't, but I typically won't, not with land, because I don't want to build up.
Seems
So,
tough.
but yeah, just, and I mean, certain parts of Gloucester too are that way. Thomas knows, but not like Matthews. Matthews is can be a little challenging in certain areas.
Jeremy, what's the coupon code for TRP? Good try. No, I'm kidding. Jeremy, reach out to me directly and we can chat. Lisa, I'm gonna cut everybody off there.
Okay.
Thank you so much. You spent a lot of time with us answering questions. You gave me a lot of notes. To everybody in the group, I'm gonna send out the notes. I'll send out the replay as soon as it's ready. Lisa, will have to have you on again because I'll give you a few things I wanted to get to. One is being a female in construction industry. I think that's something that well, again, we could go into it, but I'll save it for next time you come on with us.
Okay.
We're going to talk about Airbnbs, housing shortage, affordable housing, but you're such a wealth of knowledge that we couldn't even get to it. So hopefully we can have you on again. Thanks again. And thank you everybody who jumped on the chat, who jumped on the call, participated. It's been a really good one. So, Lisa, what do you think? How was that?
It was great.
Good.
It was good. You had a good group
Bye
here.
now. Lisa, I'm going to see you soon. I'm coming down to Deltaville to stay in your tiny home.
Yep.
Which one do I stay in? The tiny one or the teeny one?
The teeny weeny, which is behind the one that you showed the picture of.
Okay.
That one's the 339 square feet. It's a square foot ADU.
That's about my waist size here. All right. Well, I'm excited for that. I'm excited to see Deltaville with you. And again, thank you so much. I'll see you soon. And thanks everybody on the call. Y'all have a good day and a good week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye now.